Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Steph and this is another episode of Love Her to List It. Love Her to List It is a video series on my channel where I go through my owned TBR and I read backlist books. Once I read those books, I determine if I'm going to keep the book or if I'm going to list it on Pango by the end of the video. In this video, my Patreon is very much involved, but they don't know they're involved. So I hope that you enjoy the chaos. Hello my beautiful friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Steph. So today is the start of a Love It or List It. And this Love It or List It is unique in that I'm letting my patrons control what happens in this video, but they don't actually know that they're controlling it. I recently asked them to give me some prompts, but instead of just putting the prompts in the chat, I wanted them to spoiler tag them, because in Discord you have the option to spoiler tag things, so it just blocks out all of the text. So I can't see what any of these prompts are. So essentially I'm going to be using their prompts by just like scrolling through that chat and clicking on one random one. That'll be the prompt that I choose. I am then going to find 2 or 3 books that I think can fulfill those prompts, and then I'm going to have my patrons vote on those 3 choices by putting emojis in a poll over on Patreon. So they are quite literally controlling this entire video without knowing that they're controlling this video. I'm sure they know I'm up to something though. I'm sure they know. So I'm gonna be going into the chat that has all of the prompts and I'm just gonna scroll through and I'm gonna pick 3 of these prompts. Okay, let's choose for prompt number 1. Okay, so prompt number 1 is from Amanda and it is randomize A to Z and read a book starting with that letter. Okay, so let me pull up a random letter generator, generate random letter. And we got R. Okay, so I have to find 3 books that have R at the beginning of the title. I can't even think of any. Okay, so here's the thing. I found 3 books and it's literally like the only 3 books that I have unread that start with R. We have Ripe, and the thing about Ripe is I'm not in the mental state to read this. I know all of the trigger warnings for this and I am just not in a place to be able to read this with the trigger warnings that it has. And then we have Rain and Ruin, which would be absolutely perfect if I weren't already reading it for another video. Like I'm already reading it. So this isn't the one. So the one that it has to be is The Reappearance of Rachel Price. I'm not counting the in this title. So we will be reading The Reappearance of Rachel Price, which I'm actually really excited about this. If you've watched a few of my videos recently, I've been very much in the mood for like YA, especially YA thrillers or like YA weird girl, sad girl books. So I think this will be perfect. I really, really loved A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I need to finish that series, but I really loved it. So I'm gonna be reading this one and I'm very excited. Okay, let's move on to picking our next prompt. Okay, so our next prompt is from Rachel, and Rachel said, read a book that a friend is currently reading. We'll just go on Goodreads and Storygraph and kind of see what we get. Okay, so scrolling through Goodreads, the first, oh that's funny, the 2 that pop up like one after the other is Wild Love and then The Reappearance of Rachel Price. So I can put Wild Love on the poll because I do own that and somebody is currently reading it. Oh, they liked a status. Okay, well, so Vera Wong, I do have this book, but I am also reading it for a different video. I've read these. I don't own a lot of these, even though I want to read them. I don't own them. Okay, so this is a random one, but Glow of the Everflame is in a series that I do want to read. I could count the first one as like reading what a friend is reading because I'm reading the same series. I know that's a stretch, but let's keep going to see if I can find something else. So once again, there's somebody who's reading a book in a series that I want to restart, and that's the Blood Mercy series. I really want to reread it, so I think I'm gonna start from the beginning. So I'm definitely gonna count that one, and I am gonna count The Spark of the Everflame. So we have The Spark of the Everflame, we have Blood Mercy, and let's see if there's anything else on here that we can end up counting. Okay, so we have Wild Love. So we actually do have Wild Love, so that would be the 3rd one. So I'm going to make a poll that is for Spark of the Everflame, Wild Love, and Blood Mercy, and we'll see what they vote on. But meanwhile, we're gonna pick the 3rd prompt, so let me go back into Discord. Okay, so the last prompt is from Kaydee, and this says to spin a color wheel, which is really fun. I haven't really done this before. I kind of love this prompt. G from Book Roast does this, like a whole vlog series of spinning a color wheel and picking like clothing and what you read based on that color. So I'm excited to do this prompt. Okay, so I fixed the color wheel. Let's spin. Okay, wait, I wasn't expecting it to actually land on black or white. Okay, so this landed on black. I think I have some. I know I have an audiobook for sure that I own that has a true black cover, but let's see what else I have. Okay, I'm back. I have 2 books that fit, and then I have an audiobook that I know fits. Funny enough, 2 of them are by the same author. So the audiobook is Lady of Darkness, which has a lot of black on the cover from what I remember. And then by that same author, I have Reign of Shadow and Endings, which, you know, a very true black cover. And then I have Blood and Steel, which arguably this has less black maybe than the 2 because of how big the shield and the dagger are, but I'm counting it because I'm definitely in a fantasy romance mood. I had a lot more black books that I could have chosen for this, but I'm in a fantasy romance mood, so I'm picking based off of that. I'm going to put up 2 polls, I guess, at this point, and I'm only going to do it by emojis. So I will come back to you tomorrow and I will let you know what won the poll and what we will be reading officially in this video. Hello friends, we're back. So the results are in, the Patreon has voted, and this is the TBR. I do have a strategy in how I'm gonna tackle this TBR because obviously we have 2 starts to 2 different fantasy romance series. And then we have our outlier, which is the reappearance of Rachel Price. And this is like mystery thriller, right? So here's the plan. So we're gonna start this vlog out strong with our first fantasy romance series, The Reign of Shadow and Endings. But then my plan is palette cleanser, mystery thriller. We're gonna start the reappearance of Rachel Price. Then we're gonna move into Spark of the Everflame. And this is the start of another fantasy romance series. And I believe the last one in the series comes out in the next few months. Like once I start this, I'm gonna marathon the series. So that's my plan, depending on how much I like this one. So we're ending on a fantasy romance series that I potentially can marathon. And how fun is that? That's the plan. So back to Reign of Shadow and Endings. I have officially started this. I am enjoying this. I actually had started it a while ago with Erin. Like we had a potential buddy read. She flew through it in like 2 days. I did not. So I ended up restarting it. And the reason that I didn't get through it quickly the first time is because the tone of this book is very bleak. Our main character, Tessa, is going through a lot of emotional turmoil, not only because of what's happening to her, but also we are starting to see glimpses into her past, and she has a pretty abusive past. From what Erin told me as well, this deals a lot with mental health, specifically Tessa's mental health, and we're already seeing just the 200 pages in that she is dealing with a lot and she doesn't necessarily handle things in the most healthy ways. So essentially in this world, there are gods, and the gods have favored children, and these favored children are called legacies. These legacies, from what I'm understanding, serve different realms, and they also partake in this kind of historical event where every time a new heir of a legacy family comes of age, they get to pick a fae who serves them, and it is quite literally servitude. And so Tessa comes into the picture because she is fae, and she goes to this ceremony knowing that she's not going to be picked, because usually the legacies start to form relationships with their source bond, as they call it, years and years before this ceremony ever happens. So Tessa knew from the very beginning that she did not want to ever be in a position of getting selected. So she did everything in her power to kind of go under the radar, but she didn't take into consideration the Arius kingdom, which is a kingdom that's known to be very secretive, but also very dangerous and dark. And due to their secrecy, no one knew that a legacy was coming of age. And so she sort of has an interaction with him at the ceremony. She's under the impression that she just has to get through the ceremony and then she can go hang with her friends and live out her life doing what the fae normally do, which is they end up in positions, like lower positions, still serving different kingdoms, but they're not source bonded to anyone. So she's just minding her business. She sort of has an interaction with Theon, not knowing who it is. And little does she know is that Theon has had her on his radar to pick as a source bonded. He ends up picking her as a source bond, and she does not take it well, especially because she has spent so long not wanting to be a source bond, trying to go under the radar. For this man to just kind of come along and pick her with no preparation, she has no idea what actually comes with being a source bond, what is expected of her. So as she's entering into this contract, she is quite literally having a mental breakdown because she's thinking about her freedom being stripped away. She's thinking about how she's going to be serving this man that she doesn't have any interest in, doesn't really know. And a lot of times these source bonds are very intimate. They're very intimate because of the way the source bond kind of works. Like, they kind of have to be close to one another for the source bond to be really strong and successful. And she is very much trying to deny the source bond. And so it is a miserable task for her to undergo everything that she has to undergo so far. And I mean, I'm sure that as we go forward, like, she'll begin to accept the bond, and hopefully her and Theon's relationship gets a little bit better. But so far, everything is very bleak. Everything is very sad. I feel for Tessa. Like, I really, really feel for Tessa. And I'm not so much the biggest fan of Theon, but I'm sure we're gonna get like a good backstory on him. And I'm very optimistic that this is gonna be something that I really, really enjoy. I don't remember how many books are in this series. Like, I think 3 are out right now. So it's actually probably for the best that I'm gonna jump into Lady of Darkness, because this is not finished from what I know, from what I understand. I don't even know if the 3rd book is out yet, actually. I know the 2nd one is for sure, but I don't know if the 3rd one actually is out. Anyway, that's all to say, this isn't even finished yet, and I'm not sure how long it's gonna be, so it's good that I'm gonna jump to Lady of Darkness after this. But my overall feelings and impressions are pretty positive. It's just currently not something I want to spend like hours and hours reading because of the tone and how it's making me feel. But I really like the writing, and I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes. So yeah, I'll probably spend the rest of the day reading this. I might give you a 50% mark update on this if I feel so inclined, or I'll just let you know when I finish it. It's Sunday, and Jared and I decided to go to this local gardening center. We got a bunch of flowers, like some potted flowers. We got some seeds. We're gonna make some seed starters, and then we're gonna transfer the flowers that we got into these really cool beds that we got, like planter box beds. Let me just show you. So we got these 2 really cool planter boxes, and then we have all of these flowers. It's just the white, purple, and yellow. So we're gonna transfer those right now, and then we're gonna start making some seed starters. But Jared accidentally locked us out of the house, so we're trying to figure that out first. Good news, we made it back into the house. Second piece of good news, we planted our flowers and we are moving on to the seedlings. So, you know what? Getting locked out didn't stop us from being gardeners today. for the last 2 days and I'm exhausted, but we got our hummingbird feeder up. We did some seed starters. We planted some, we replanted some flowers, and then I labeled all of the chilies that we planted in our backyard. We're not sure if it's gonna grow in that soil, so we'll see. But this is just really exciting. I've always wanted to be a gardening woman, and now I am. In that time, I finished Reign of Shadows and Endings. And listen, I'm not gonna rate this book, and it's not because it was bad. I actually had an enjoyable time. I just don't know how to rate this based on a lot of things. There are a lot of aspects of mental health that are being explored here, as well as there is this relationship that can make you feel extremely uncomfortable as a reader, and in so many ways it did make me feel very uncomfortable. And I'm curious how it's all gonna pan out in the end, because Theon, who is, I guess, the love interest, although I'm pretty sure this is gonna be not a love triangle, I think it's gonna be a full-on throuple, which I'm actually very excited about, and I wanna see how it pans out, to be honest. But Theon right now is like the love interest we really know and have spent time with, and I just absolutely do not like him. And I think it's absolutely frustrating that time and time again, he sees Tessa lash out or do specific things that he doesn't want her to do. She does them to be rebellious, but also, like I said in my last update, she has really bad coping mechanisms. And you would think that as he is spending so much time with her, he would notice a pattern, but he doesn't. He just like doubles down on his dickishness, and it really, really bothers me. He really bothers me, and this is why I'm interested to see this kind of turn into a love triangle, throuple type of thing, because I'm curious how this will change Theon and what he will do in the future. But I feel like he's going to become even more insufferable, which could make or break this series for me. Right now, I do want to move on, because there's also this magic system and like some world building that we're just now getting at like the end of this book, and I really, really want to know where it goes. And I'm just so curious about this world in general, because something I already know about Melissa's worlds, like the Lady of Darkness world, is that we see a variety of creatures. It's not just fae. And even in here, we have the fae and the legacies, but there's like hints at other creatures existing in this world. But I know that the Lady of Darkness series and this series exist in the same world. I just think they're taking place at different times or something like that. I don't really know. And I'll figure it out once I read the entirety of what is out by Melissa, because I'm very excited to jump into Lady of Darkness, especially because her writing is very compulsively readable and her characters are interesting. Even if you don't like them, I find them to be very compelling characters, especially Tessa. She's just really going through it, and it's almost hard to read, and that's why I don't want to rate this, because the mental health aspects of it, the way the character dynamic exists, and just the bleakness of this book in general, it's really hard for me to rate it. I will say that this is not going to be for everyone, and I think that you should go into this knowing that it is dark. Like, it is dark, it is bleak. The character is going through a multitude of mental breakdowns, and then Theon is very insufferable, and he doesn't really help with the situation, and neither does his family, but that's like a whole thing in and of itself. And we can talk all day about the family dynamics being the reason Theon is the way that he is, but also he just doesn't take a step back and try to change, at least from what we've seen in this book. So I'm hoping in the next book we start to see a shift. What did you expect, Theon? You literally chose this woman who never thought that she was going to be a source respondent. Anyway, I can't even get into it. I do keep saying that I want to go into the Lady of Darkness series before I finish this one, but part of me kind of just wants to dive into the second one sometime this month or next month, just so that I don't forget any of the details of this book. I think that's the only problem that I'm having. I mean, I don't mind rereading, so that's an option as well. But part of me is like, I've already started this series. I should just go into the second one, but regardless, I'm gonna have to wait for the third one, because I did find out that the third one isn't out yet. I don't know, we'll see what happens. But I am gonna go into the reappearance of Rachel Price. Like I said, I wanted a palette cleanser. I think this would be the perfect palette cleanser. I usually read thrillery type books pretty quickly, so I think I could get through this in the next day or two, but I will keep you updated. Okay, so I didn't give you a halfway update for the reappearance of Rachel Price, but that's because I pretty much read it in one sitting. That's just kind of what happens with me and Holly Jackson. I end up picking up one of her books and I can read it in one sitting just because it's so compelling. And I feel like that's what's fun about thrillers. Also, I do think my plan was very well executed because this was the perfect palate cleanser for me. I'm definitely ready to go back into another fantasy. That all being said, this book is extremely compelling, but I will say the twist of it all, while I liked it, I didn't really love it, and there's like a little bit of a romance in here that I felt, why did it happen? Why was it happening? So I think that I'm landing on a 3.5 for this book overall, just because of some of the things that I didn't really enjoy in here. And I also think the twist of a book, especially a thriller book, is usually the most important part of the thriller. And this one, I didn't hate it. It just wasn't my favorite twist, and this just didn't hit me the same way as The Good Girl's Guide to Murder did. I just really loved that book, and I should have read the second one because I haven't actually finished that series. That being said, I did think that this was going to give me more of The Good Girl's Guide to Murder vibe than it actually did, only because The Good Girl's Guide to Murder has like a podcast element, and in this one, the main character and her family are filming for a crime documentary, and this crime documentary is supposed to be about the disappearance of Rachel Price, who was Belle's mother, who went missing 16 years ago, and a body was never found. When the investigation was still ongoing, Belle's dad was the prime suspect for the wife going missing. But he ended up having an alibi and there was no way to like implicate him for this murder. So 16 years have gone by and there have been some things that have happened with Belle and her family regarding this case, with like people being obsessed with the case and getting a little too involved and a little too close to the family for comfort. And so when you meet this family, they're kind of struggling because Belle's grandpa is dealing with dementia and they need to get a lot of home care for him. And so Belle's dad decides that it's in their best interest to do this true crime documentary, maybe for some closure, but also because the amount of money that they will make will allow them to have some home care for their grandfather. So in the first part, you're learning a lot about the family dynamics and you're learning bits and pieces of what Belle kind of knows about her mother going missing. Belle knows that the day that her mother went missing, she was in the car. She was left in the car and her mother was nowhere to be found. And so it's always been assumed that somebody close to the family, somebody who knew the family, was involved. And this is something that the true crime documentary is kind of trying to suss out. They're kind of trying to do what Serial did, where they interview a lot of different people who knew Rachel and sort of suss out what's going on. In the midst of this documentary being filmed, Rachel Price reappears. She comes back. She comes back and she says that her captor has held her chained in a dungeon for 16 years and that he just let her go. He just let her go and she found her way home. At first, everyone accepts this and they're sort of sussing out Rachel's story, sussing out the details of her story and like seeing if there are any plot holes, because there is suspicion, because it seems that there's suspicious timing in terms of the documentary happening and Rachel coming back. So our main character, Belle, who has no real attachment to her mother because she was only like 2 years old when her mother went missing, starts to become very suspicious of Rachel and why she reappeared at this specific time and decides to do her own sleuthing. So that is the majority of the book, is that she starts sleuthing and trying to figure out, is there something going on here? And it was a really interesting ride. I did think that the docu-series part would be more interesting to me, like the podcast elements are in books. Like usually I really love the podcast elements of a book. So I thought that the docu-series, I keep calling it a docu-series, it was just a documentary. I just thought the documentary part, the filming portion of it all, would be interesting. I thought we would get more like interviews, but really it's not. It's very much just the interpersonal lives of this family and sleuthing around town and like questioning people who worked with Rachel and like questioning people who knew Rachel in the past and like spying on Rachel. It's not really much about the documentary. So like, you know how a podcast is normally very much all the way through a book? The documentary isn't that well ingrained in this book, I feel. So that part, I think I had the wrong impression of what that was going to be like because of podcast stuff. And I know they're very different things, but I thought that we would have more interview moments and more like multimedia moments. That's another reason why I listened to this on audiobook, because I thought that maybe the audiobook would have that type of production, but it doesn't really. Not that the audiobook is bad. I really enjoyed the narrator, but it's not the same type of production as A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, or really any of those books that have podcast elements to it. But I can say that Holly Jackson continues to be really fun, and I really enjoy how she approaches YA thrillers, and I always will pick them up. I feel like I'm always going to pick up her books. Unlike The Good Girl's Guide to Murder, this isn't one I foresee myself rereading. I liked the characters, didn't love them. I definitely had a lot of interest and a lot of investment in figuring out what was going on and who was implicated in what, and like how this all went down, because we know the bare bones of what happened the day that Rachel disappeared. There seemed to be a lot of missing pieces, and that was very interesting to me, and it was very interesting to me how it comes together. It's very twisty and turny. It's just not my favorite thing that I've ever read, but I'm giving it a 3.5, and like I said, I'll continue to pick up Holly Jackson. I just really enjoy her writing, and I really enjoy what she does with stories. Even though I say that I don't like amateur sleuthing, I find that every time I read a YA thriller, there's nothing better than an amateur teenage sleuth, even if it's unrealistic. Like, it's just so fun to me. I don't know if I'm gonna keep this one though. I do feel like it's one that I'll end up listing, because like I said, I'm not sure that I'll ever reread this. We are now going into the last book, which is Spark of the Everflame. So, hello besties. We're about to go run some errands. We're gonna head to the library. I have a couple holds that I need to pick up, and then I need to go to Target, because when am I not going to Target? Now that I live down the street from a Target, it's game over. It's game over for me.
You say you wanna make it happen. You know what I want. Don't try to fight the heavens. Good girls aren't the one. I'm a flower in the bloom, like a shower you with love. You can keep the keys to your dreams. Say the magic word, you know I'm all yours. This love is a fate that don't want dreams. You took the words right out of my mind. Just need a good girl.
There's Fitz. Hello, oh, don't mind me, Goose. Yeah, don't worry about me. Goose is all over my business today. But yeah, I went to the library because I had a few holds that I needed to pick up, and then I went to Target because I needed some toiletries. And of course, I also got snacks, because I can't really go to Target without getting snacks. It's just like the law. I think it's the law. I think it's California state law. But anyway, at the library, I ended up getting This Woven Kingdom, and this is simply because of Erin. So Erin has been reading the series. She marathoned all 3 of these books in like 2 days, and the thing is, I loved Tahitimafi in the past because I really, really loved the Shatter Me series, and then the last 2 books in the Shatter Me series made me so irrationally angry that I swore off Tahitimafi. Even though I really like her writing and I think it's like a fun time, she always creates a fun time. Even though I'm fully aware that the Shatter Me series is not like the best piece of literature to ever exist, I had so much fun reading it until the end, and I felt like the very, very end was fan service, and it was just a disappointing series conclusion overall. But Erin loving this is a really good sign, because I already have loved Tahitimafi before, so I had to get this. And then I actually almost bought this when I was at the bookstore, because I've been in a YA mood, and there were a few books in my hand last time we were at the bookstore that were from the YA section, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get these. And then very last minute, which is very notorious me when I go book shopping, like I'll have a stack of books and I'll come out with one or nothing. I actually shop that way in general. It's like I need to feel it out. But this was one of the books that kind of stuck with me that I wanted to still try to read, and it is The Family Fortuna by Lindsay Eger. How do you say your last name? But this is supposed to be kind of a circus book. I'm always intrigued by a circus premise in a book. I never know which way it's gonna go. I never know if I'm gonna love it or hate it. There are a few series I can think of where I hated it, which we won't go into. But this one just felt and sounded so intriguing. So I'm excited about this one. I'm really hoping that I end up liking it, but If not, oh well. So those were the 2 books that I got. And then the Target that I go to is like a small Target, so they don't have a book section. Well, they used to, but then when I went to go look for it today, I didn't find it. They had moved some stuff around, so I couldn't find it. So no books from Target. Who's surprised? No one. No one is surprised. And then I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with these milk chocolate pecan caramel crunchy clusters. And all I can say is these are addicting. If you don't know this about me, I love like chocolate and caramel type of candy. It's like my favorite type of candy next to sour, like chewy candy. Those are my 2 spectrums. I also got some cherries because I don't know what it is about this particular Target. Never seen it in another Target, but this particular Target, their fruit section is so good. It always looks delicious. It always looks fresh and fun. And I always get something from it and love it. Okay, I got something that's very familiar if you watched my magical readathon video. I ended up getting some nails. So I got another pack and I got these extra short and they have like little daisies on them. And I'm very excited because these are cute and fresh. Toiletries, I just got some mousse. I've been liking this new brand that I found at Target called The Dew, and this is Mousse Def. I just realized that it's supposed to be like Most Def. Okay, this is Mousse Def. It's texture foam all-in-one styler for all hair types. Detangles, conditions, defines, shines in one step. It looks like this. And I have curly hair naturally, but I'm very lazy and I don't do my routine because usually it's a lot of product. I have the patience for a lot of things, but for some reason my hair is not one of them. And so I usually just end up straightening my hair or just throwing it in a bun. And I've been really trying to find products that do more than just one thing, so it cuts down on the steps, the amount of steps that it takes to do my hair. And then I just got some body lotion because I use a lot of lotion in my day-to-day life. If I could dip myself in a vat of lotion twice a day, morning and night, I would be such a happy camper. But in the meantime, I just buy lotion and use it. And then I just use the CeraVe Daily Moisturizing Lotion in the daytime. I use a thicker cream at night, but in the daytime, I like this because it's still moisturizing enough, but it's also light. And I get the value size, which is a big reason why I go to Target because they always have the value size. Fitz is back there giving you a show. I'm gonna eat lunch and I will talk to you when I have an update. Update, I did my nails. And I'm insufferable. I'm insufferable. Jared is singing, and I'm insufferable. Already lost a pinky finger. We already lost a soldier in this battle, but we will see how much longer these can last. Okay, anyway, I'm here to actually update you because I've been reading Spark of the Everflame and I am engrossed. So much so that I am already here. I'm already here. I'm 273 pages into it and I've been reading it for the last day. I started it last night. I've been reading it most of today. It's such a quick read. I mean, if you actually look at the font, it's pretty big font and the book itself is only 440 pages long, I believe. Oh, it's not even that. So it's pretty short and it reads really quickly. I really love the world so far and I really love our main character's narration and voice. She is the only POV in this. I don't know if maybe the second book becomes dual POV, but in this book we're not really getting the love interest on page. The main character is actually in a whole other relationship with another man. By the time the book starts, when you meet DM, you already know that Henry and her are in a relationship. They are the quintessential childhood best friends to lovers, but we meet them as lovers and she kind of explains how that came to be. So she's in a relationship with somebody completely different than who she should be ending this book in a relationship with. But we have met this other love interest. I'm 99.9% sure the person that we met at a random point in the book is the person she's going to end up falling in love with, but I can't be too sure because we're very much stuck with Henry right now, who is a complete dud, but That's neither here nor there. So like I said, this book opens with us knowing a little bit about DM. One of the main things is that she's a healer and she is human. This is important because this world is split into two. There are humans and there are the descendants of gods. And they simply call these beings the descendants. The descendants are extremely powerful. They are the only magic wielders within this world that we know of. And they use their magic to oppress humans. And one day, DM ends up seeing her mother in this really weird situation where she's talking to this man that she doesn't recognize. It's a very weird and tense situation, and her mother sends DM away despite DM's protests. And then next thing she knows, her mother is missing. And so by the time we meet back up with DM, it is like months and months later, and her mother still hasn't returned, and there's no word of what could have possibly happened to her. While others believe that her mother is probably dead, DM hasn't really given up hope, but she's run into a situation where it turns out that her mother was serving the kingdom so that her little brother could go to the special school with the descendants in order to get a better education. But because her mother has been missing, she is fearful that he's gonna lose his scholarship and his ability to go to this school. So DM makes the decision that she's gonna take her mother's place in order to guarantee that her brother can continue going to school. When she takes this role on, she starts to see things that start to lead her down a dangerous path. I'm assuming that it's going to be very dangerous. So like I said, this is interesting because we already have a relationship that's been established with the person who isn't endgame. I know for sure he's not endgame, just based off of other people reading this and also based off of their relationship in general. Henry is one of those people who, like, you know, he's a walking red flag, but the main character can't see it and she only sees glimpses of it. And when she sees glimpses of it, she kind of tries to brush it off, and you're like, no babe, don't brush that off. Pay attention to that, he's a dud. But you know, we've all been there. We've all been in that relationship where there were red flags aplenty. And honestly, the person who I believe is going to be the love interest really isn't involved in her life at this point. She has no real contrast to see that Henry is not it. He's not it. But yeah, I only have like, I guess 100 pages left. A little over 100 pages left. I didn't realize how far I was until I was like, oh, I probably should do an update about this. Really enjoying it. Very interested in the world. Very interested in how things are going to pan out based on where DM is at in this situation that she's dealing with. I'm so curious about what's going on with her mom, if we're gonna get those answers in the next book, because I don't think in 100 pages we're gonna get answers about her mom, but you never know. I don't know how explosive this ending is gonna be. And also, I just really like DM. I really like being in her head. I really like following healers, I've realized. Reading The Crown of Oaths and Curses, I realized I really love following healers because Rook in that book is a healer, and I loved every second of it. I loved every second of it, and so in here, I'm really enjoying it as well. So that's like a newfound thing for me. So yeah, it's really exciting that DM is also a healer, and I've been very much enjoying that aspect of it. And every time she's talking about her craft and like what she does and how she goes about helping people, really love that. Hello friends, I just got home from work like an hour ago, and I've just been trying to decompress from a very long and busy day. It was just long and it was busy, and I was ready to go home so early in the day, and I was like, I still have 4 hours left. But we made it. You know what didn't make it though? My nails. The thing is, like, I don't even get my nails done regularly. That's why I've been wanting to try press-ons, because I'm like, ooh, this is sort of the best of both worlds where I can take them off whenever I need to, and I can test out if I can handle it. Beyonce, can you handle it? I couldn't handle it, because I hyperfixate on it and then I immediately want them off. I think I'm gonna take a break from trying out press-ons. Probably should have never started. Anyway, I finished Spark of the Everflame. I actually finished it last night, so I would say that I read this in like a day and a half, if that. I was so captivated. This is shorter. It's on the shorter side for a fantasy romance. It's like 420 pages or something like that. And I just had so much fun. I really did. This is a solid 4-star read for me. I think one of the things that really helped with my reading experience, which based on reviews and what I've been seeing online, the reason that people didn't enjoy this one as much is because the love interest, the true love interest, is not really on page that much. And our main character is with a whole different guy, and this guy is a dud. Henry is a dud. But I knew that going into this. I was very well aware of the fact that our main love interest wasn't gonna be that present in this book. So I kind of just took this as it was, and I had a lot of fun. I do think Henry is very annoying, and I do think that, yeah, it has a slow start, but I was just like really into it from the beginning. Really love our main characters that I think are going to start to really become the forefront of this story. I especially love this world and the world building, and like the fact that we only know bits and pieces of the magic system, and knowing that we're going to get so much more probably throughout the rest of the series. I also just really enjoyed the characters that we did get to know. I liked the banter between all of the characters. Everyone had such a different relationship to DM, and that was so palpable, I guess. Like a lot of the back and forth between her and her brother just felt so familiar to me. Like it's back and forth that I would have with my brother, or back and forth that she had with a best friend or a mentor, or even Henry. Like, even though I don't like Henry, they had an interesting back and forth and it felt unique to their relationship. So I just really enjoyed those character dynamics and the way that they interacted with each other. And I liked a lot of the dialogue in here, which is something that I sometimes struggle with, is like the cheesiness of dialogue in some fantasy romances. I didn't really feel that here. I was just having a really fun time. And this has just made me really excited to read, especially the ending. The ending was explosive. The ending ends on a cliffhanger. And as soon as that ending happened, I immediately went to the next audiobook and pressed play because I needed to know if it picked up where it left off, which it does. And I'm just really enjoying my time. I also know that people love the second book, so I'm really looking forward to that. And I can already kind of tell that this one is going to be really good. I'm already vibing with it. Like, I'm vibing with a lot of the new characters that we're being introduced to. So yeah, I'll talk about that later because I'm actually doing like a weekend reading vlog where I read the rest of the series, because I was like, I just need to vlog my experience reading the rest of the series. So with that all being said, it is the end of the video. We have finished another episode of Love It or List It, and so now I need to determine what I'm keeping and what I'm listing. I ended up reading Reign of Shadow and Endings, and this one I didn't rate. And this is one that I'm definitely going to keep, only because I think I've said this in another video, when it's the first of a series, even if I don't rate it or I've rated it kind of lower, maybe a 3 stars, I don't normally keep 3 stars on my shelves, is why I'm saying that. Even if I have rated it a little bit lower, I tend to keep the first book or the second book in a series that isn't completed, that I plan to move on with the series, because I like to now rate series as a whole. So I am gonna keep this one, and depending on how I feel about the Lady of Darkness series and like the second book in this series will determine whether or not I keep this. I then read The Reappearance of Rachel Price, and I gave this a 3.5. I said in my update that this was one that I wasn't gonna reread. After being away from it for a few days, I'm definitely not gonna reread this, and I'm definitely not gonna keep it. So this one is definitely being unhauled. I mean, I'm not unhauling this. I am so excited for this to potentially be one of my new favorite series, and I can't wait. I can't wait to continue through this. I can't wait for June, because that's when the 4th and final book comes out. I'm just so excited to be enamored with the series. So this is staying on my shelves. So we had another successful Love It or List It. Let me know down below if you've read any of these, how you felt about them, if you have any prompts that you want me to fulfill for Love It or List It. Maybe I can do a Love It or List It based on my subscribers' prompts. That would be really fun. So leave them down below if you have any. If you've made it this far and you have nothing else to say, please feel free to leave a crown emoji or the fire emoji down below, and I will talk to y'all next time. Bye, friends.